All right, so I just wanted to start by welcoming all of you to session 2 of the tax webinar series. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us during your lunch hour. Just a few housekeeping items before we start. If you have any questions, please wait until the end of each presentation to address those questions. Silvia will be the only presenter here today, so just wait until she's done each topic. And another note as well, we will be recording this session. I'm going to start by reading the land acknowledgement.
Give me a moment.
TDS acknowledges, respects, and have the honor of being located on the lands in Treaty 1, Treaty 2, and Treaty 6 territories, the traditional homelands of the Anishinaabe, Blackfoot, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dene, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis nations. We also acknowledge that the potable water we drink here in Winnipeg is sourced from Shoal Lake 41st Nation. We recognize and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and believe in reconciliation, cooperation, and moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities. All right, so I'd like to introduce, before I introduce Silvia here, sorry Silvia, I just want to introduce Corinne Gaznaski, the Business Development Manager from New Media Manitoba, as we are doing this webinar specifically for the New Media Manitoba members.
Thank you very much, Renee. So as Renee had mentioned, I'm Corinne Gaznaski, Business Development Manager at New Media Manitoba. So for those of you that may not be familiar, we are a sector council and we serve the interactive digital media sector. So those working in video game development with VR, AR technologies, doing web app development and more. So we are thrilled to have TDS sharing here with our constituents alongside their clients. And I'm also very thrilled to hear from Silvia de Sousa, who is an excellent lawyer and sharing with us on the topics here today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I just want to introduce Silvia here as our speaker today. So Silvia's practice is concentrated in the area of business law with an emphasis on intellectual property law and technology law. Silvia is also a trademark agent. So on that note, Silvia, I'll hand it off to you.
Okay, I'm just going to close my door because I think I just heard my husband come home and he's a little loud. So give me a moment. Okay. Thank you very much for having me. Today I'm going to be speaking about government programs that businesses could tap into to help them protect their intellectual property and technology. Also note that that's what I'm going to be focusing on just because I'm an IP technology lawyer, but also note that these government programs also have funds for you or grants for you for other areas of your business that you may want to tap in as well. And so there's 3 programs that I'd like to talk about. I'm just going to bring my PowerPoint in there. And here's sort of my presentation overview. The first program is the CanExport program, and I want to talk about what it is for CMEs, and then we're going to talk about eligibility for that program. The second program that I'd like to talk about is the IP Assist program. I'm going to quickly talk about types of IP ownership, IP protection, IP strategy, and then the 3 IP Assist programs that bring in those elements, L1, L2, and L3. And then the third program that I'd like to talk about is the Digital Services Program. I'm going to talk about how you qualify, the service streams that exist, and the types of digital legal services stream, and the 3 documents that that I had recommended that this program consider, and they took me up on my recommendation. One of the things that people should note on this call is Manitoba, and I haven't looked at the stats recently, but the last time I looked at the stats, Manitoba and the businesses and the people in Manitoba don't really tap into these government programs readily, which is sad because the government has these programs to help businesses. And so that's why I'm actually doing this presentation, because I want to get this information out to Manitoba businesses so they could at least know how to qualify, figure out if it really applies to them. And if it does, explain to them that it's not difficult to get these monies and to tap into these monies, and that they should be. So at least we could get assistance to the companies and also increase the percentage of Manitoba businesses that are able to access these government programs that exist. So the CanExport program was one of the first programs that came out recently that will help businesses access funds to protect some type of intellectual property, in this case, particularly trademarks, and maybe some type of legal documents, in this case, maybe terms of use. So the CanExport program is a popular Canadian government grant that supports small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs. And this is what I want to focus on this presentation, but note that there is other avenues other than SMEs with CanExport program for communities and not-for-profits, for example. But I'm not focusing on that at all today. Just know that if you are a not-for-profit, there is an avenue for you under this program. And so it's for SMEs registered in Canada that are seeking to develop new export opportunities and markets, especially high growth emerging markets. So the bottom line here for you is to ask yourself, am I exporting outside of Canada? And if you are exporting outside of Canada, then I would highly recommend that you look at this program to see if you qualify. And it also gives you access to grant monies, not just for legal stuff, but also for marketing, for example, for trade shows. So there's a lot of avenues for this program for SMEs that you may be able to get access to funds to help you within your business if you are exporting. And one thing, I mean, as some of you may know, like I've been practicing law for about 28, 29 years, particularly in the IP technology area. And over those years, there was very rarely government programs, grant monies that were given to businesses to help them protect, on a legal side, some of their intellectual property, for example, or help them tap into grant monies to prepare legal documents. And that has changed a lot since COVID. And so, and I'll talk about 3 of those programs here. So that's a big change. And so again, another reason why you need to consider it. If you are a business person who is interested in intellectual property protection or adaptation of contracts for target markets, CanExport program can assist with covering some of the following expenses. So for example, application fees to local authorities for the protection of intellectual property like trademarks, patents, and copyright in target markets. Number 2, adaptation and transition of contractual agreements, sales contract, distribution agreements, license agreements, services agreements for the target market. So you may be able to tap in, get some monies, and then you and I could work on a distribution agreement, for example. Number 3, the cost of seeking legal, tax, or business advice specifically related to target markets. And these, again, are referring to export markets outside of Canada. And number 4, the cost of engaging expert advice on regulatory issues for the target markets, including on-market access, intellectual property, trademarks, patents, and certification. So funding is provided on a cost-sharing basis between the applicant and CanExport, which is the federal government program. The program will reimburse up to 75% of eligible expenses. The applicant is responsible for the remaining 25%. In-kind contributions do not count towards the 25%. If you are looking at this, here's the criteria that you need to have to qualify. Number 1, you need to be a for-profit company. Again, this is the SME stream. Again, there's other streams. Number 2, you need to be an incorporated legal entity or a limited liability partnership in Canada. Number 3, you need to have a Canada Revenue Agency business number, but some exceptions do exist. Number 4, have no more than 500 full-time equivalent employees. And number 5, have no less than $100,000 and no more than $100 million in annual revenue declared in Canada during its last complete tax reporting year or during the last 12 months for monthly and quarterly filers. So with this program, I would do it sooner than later. The last time one of my clients was able to tap into it, it took about 3 months for after the application was sent in for them to be able to access the grant monies. It is on a yearly basis. So if the program runs out of money, you'll have to wait until the next year opens up to tap in. So you want to do it sooner than later. And if you don't get in because let's say they've tapped out the monies for that year, then you just diarize to go back at the beginning of the year. And again, the year may not be January 1, it may be like an April 1, for example, and then tap in and put your application in. I'm now going to ask if there's any questions. I'm going to go into the chat room on the CanExport program. I don't see any. Oh, there's someone typing. I'm going to wait. And if you want to do video questions, I mean, if you want to just go and put on your video, that's also totally fine. So Christopher Clark is typing. So I'll let him finish that. And then, is software distributed by App Store considered export? I'm not 100% sure. And I'm just now thinking of clients of mine that were able to tap into it. I mean, the recent clients that were able to tap were not a SaaS or a mobile app, but that's not to say that that you may not qualify. So I would double check on that. Okay. So now I'm going to go back into the PowerPoint. Give me a moment. IP Assist. So many of you already know that there's different types of IP, and IP stands for intellectual property. On this PowerPoint, I've given you examples of sort of the more common types of intellectual property or IP. So trademarks, patents, industrial design, copyright, trade secrets, software code or source code, domain names, social media handles, and data. And all of you on this call, if you have a business, you'll have one or more of those. I could guarantee that you'll have some type of IP in your business. The other concept that you've probably heard me talk about, if you've heard me speak on IP, is IP ownership. And so the key point here is these two myths that exist, which is the employer is automatically the owner of all the intellectual property created by its employees. And the other myth is that the customer is automatically the owner of all intellectual property that's created by its independent contractors. And as many of you have probably heard me say, that's not the case unless you have the appropriate agreements in place. IP ownership is critical if you're a technology-based business and if intellectual property is important to your business. And so you always have to lock that down. And I'll explain why I've got these two PowerPoint slides on and why I'm tying them into the IP Assist program in a minute. And then the other concept is IP protection. So you all have IP. And what I say to clients and during my presentations is that you should do a table. The first column is the type of IP that you have in your business. So make a list in column 1. So if you have a trademark, you put that down, for example. If you have an invention, you put that down. And then column 2 is you ask yourself if it's valuable and you put yes or no. And then column 3 is if valuable, do I want IP protection? And that's this slide. So IP protection, all IP is national in scope. So no such thing as an international trademark or an international patent, for example. What does that mean for you? It means that you have to identify the key countries where you're going to be generating revenue. And that's your third column. What are those key countries? And you put that down for IP protection. So consider if you need to file in foreign countries. And the rights conferred by most types of IPs extended only on a national basis. Nothing is international. And then you choose your strong markets for IP protection. And that's what you list in your third column. And then note that costs will vary from country to country. And so that and it could become very expensive. So that's why you need to have a strategy on where to file, when to file, and basically listing the countries in stages or phases. And I've worked with my clients on that. And I'll say phase 1 countries, it's going to be these based on what you've told me. Phase 2 is this, phase 3 is this. And then my last point here is consider registering countries that have weak IP laws, like China, for example, or Russia, or even Saudi Arabia. And so I have discussions with my clients if my clients are doing business in those countries and whether or not we should be spending some money on filing in those particular countries where really they don't have respect for IP laws. And then when we're looking at this, you know, and for example, recently one of my clients is looking at outside of Canada and the United States. So I've already filed for them in those two countries for their trademarks, for example. Now we're looking at patent protection as well. But they just sent me an email and saying, listen, we're also looking at South America and we're looking at the Caribbean. How much? And so then I go, okay, which countries in South America are you keen on? And then I'll get you the costs. And so now I sent them a bunch of emails for each country that they're interested in. So I can certainly do that for you guys as well. If you're interested in filing, how much to do a trademark there, if there's no office action, for example. So why is this all important when it comes to the IP Assist program? Because everything that I've just discussed on IP, and I've given you sort of the three pillars that are critical: IP protection, IP ownership, and then identifying the IP. All of that, you need to sort of figure that out. And how do you figure that out in an easy way? By doing an IP strategy, or having someone like me do an IP strategy report. And the federal government recognized that is now very important for businesses to be able to do this. And one of the reasons that's happened and why the federal government has been focusing over the last number of years and talking about IP and technology strategy is because when the federal government looks at the stats on an international level, what they see is that Canadian businesses are not doing enough to protect their intellectual property as compared to, say, companies or businesses in the US, for example, and in Germany and in China. And those are some of the three top countries in the world that encourage their businesses, help their citizens get IP protection. And so how do you help Canadian businesses figure that out? And that's through an IP strategy report. And the IP Assist program will allow you to tap into grant monies to be able to pay an IP professional like myself to prepare for you an IP strategy report. But in order to be able to do that through the IP Assist program, you need to have an IRAP advisor. So for clients of mine who ask about this, I give them the phone number, or you could go online and email and to try to get an IRAP advisor to see if you qualify to get an IRAP advisor, because if you do, then you can get into the IP Assist program. And once you qualify, then you get into this program. And it's an NRC IRAP instituted, the IP Assist program in October 2021, with the goal of providing SMEs with access to experts in IP. And the program was developed in line with the federal government's greater commitment to support the development and commercialization of technologies produced by Canadian businesses, because Canada falls behind on the global level. And through the program, eligible SMEs can receive a subsidy of 75%, up to a maximum of $30,000, towards designing and implementing a personalized IP strategy. SMEs that are interested in the IP Assist program must first be admitted as an IRAP client. And to be an IRAP client, again, you could phone in the number, or you could access, go through the IP Assist online website. You need to be an incorporated SME in Canada. You have to employ fewer than 5,000 employees. You have an objective to grow through innovation. And once you get approved, the IRAP enters into contracts with you to complete specific projects in line with their ongoing initiatives. And through these contracts, IRAP usually pays a share of costs for work that is agreed upon in advance, and the SME provides regular progress reports and invoices to IRAP. Every IRAP client is also paired with an advisor who provides guidance to you through each project. And so on the IP Assist program, for example, if there's an SME that gets approved for, and we'll talk about the L1, L2, and L3, then what I do is I prepare a proposal for, let's say a client of mine gets accepted, then I prepare a proposal for them that they could then attach to the application for the IP Assist program. The IP Assist program is one of IRAP's latest initiatives. In addition to being an IRAP client, SMEs interested in participating in the program must have expertise in 2 of the following industries to be eligible. And these are sort of wide definitions. So just because you might think you don't fall within one of these, don't assume that you don't qualify. For example, ICT would include a lot of software-based, digital-based businesses. So the target industries are advanced manufacturing, aerospace, agri-food, biomedical, bioproducts, clean tech, construction, ICT, mining, or branding strategy. And if you're not sure, I would ask by phoning that phone number or going online, the IRAP people on whether they think you qualify. Don't automatically assume that you don't. And if you qualify, you may qualify for one or all, or more than one or two of the following levels. L1, level 1 is IP awareness. L2 is IP strategy, and that's where the IP strategy report falls within. And then L3 is the implementation of recommendations that are recommended in the IP strategy report. So I've been doing some of this work for some of my clients or for referrals that have come through the IRAP Assist program. And so on level 2, when I prepare an IP strategy report, I make recommendations after speaking to the client, after doing my due diligence, after doing a high-level review of their contracts, and I make a bunch of recommendations, and I prepare an IP strategy report. It all goes into that, and then you get it. And the IRAP advisor that you work with gets it. And then both of you will sit down and go through my IP strategy report and my recommendations. And then both of you will work and see whether some of those recommendations that I've made could come into level 3 through the implementation. So let's now look into more detail what a level 1 IP awareness means. Level 1 is focused on the learning and increasing SME's overall awareness of IP. The SME's IRAP advisor begins by matching the SME with an expert in IP in their specific industry. Once assigned, the IP expert hosts a tailored one-on-one awareness session during which they will provide specific IP information and guidance to the SME. The meeting typically consists of a 30 to 60 minute presentation that covers such general topics as the definition types of IP, why IP rights are important, when and how to use IP, and the best practices for SMEs with respect to IP. After the presentation, the SME and IP expert will engage in a question and answer period about the information that's presented. The IP expert does not provide specific advice at this stage. So I've done a few of these already, but I laugh because I've been doing this kind of thing for over my 28, 29 years of practicing the IP field. And some of you may have already got some of this from me already. My IP presentations talk a lot about this. And I've been sharing a lot of this for many, many years because it's critical. But you may qualify for an L1, and basically what that is, and what I've done is, and some of you may have seen my IP corporate checklist, which is what I use for this. And I send it to the client, and then we have a call, and we go through my checklist, and we talk about IP. We talk about how it ties into their business, what their business has. We talk about some of the concepts that you heard me talk about today. IP ownership, IP protection, what's IP, types of IP, do you have it in your business, national in scope. And so if you qualify for this level 1 through the IP Assist program, the grant is $1,000, and if you qualify for this L1 $1,000 grant, then you get set up with an IP professional like myself, and we give you this information in a 30 to 60 minute window. Usually it's 60 minutes for me anyways. And then you don't have to pay for it if you qualify for the grant. The program will then pay an IP professional like myself for giving you this session. Now, the level 2 session, IP strategy, is once you do the L1, and you don't have to automatically do the L1, you could automatically go into L2. And so that's what you work with your IRAP advisor on. And then once, so you might get 1 and 2, you might just go into 2. And if you qualify for the L2, the purpose of this level is to develop effective ways to use IP tools to support your business strategy with the assistance of your assigned IP expert like myself. In developing an effective personalized IP strategy, I call it the IP strategy report, and my report could be at least 17 pages. The way I've structured my template and my report to my clients is almost like a checklist. You will not be able to afford or to do everything that I recommend in one shot. And so what I've been advising my clients on these IP strategy reports is to pull it out every quarter and then try to knock off 1 or 2 or 3 items And so that way you're just strengthening your IP, your technology as you go along, and not to get discouraged that you need to do it all in one shot. And then in my IP strategy reports, I do highlight sort of the key items that should be prioritized first. And so then you also get guidance from me as to what's critical and what's not so critical that you could sort of do later on. And so you work with your IP expert, and your IRAP advisor will also be working with us on that to try to identify and understand your IP assets, the gaps, the opportunities for further IP portfolio growth, and the best practices for protecting your specific IP. And when applying for this level, SMEs must provide a specialized quote from your IP expert, and that's where I get that proposal, which I send to my clients that they could attach to the application, which details the costs of developing the IP strategy. Only after the client has received approval from IRAP should the IP expert begin executing on the quoted services. And IRAP can provide a subsidy of up to $10,000 that is intended to cover 75% of the costs associated with this level. And so that would be a big picture, really an IP strategy report. And level 3, from my experience, you need to do, and again, I may be wrong on this, but from my experience, in order to get into a level 3 through the IP Assist program, you will need to at least have done, for sure, an L1 or L2. Maybe you need to have done for sure an L2. And at this third level, SMEs work with their assigned IP expert to enact critical components of the IP strategy developed at the level 2. So eligible activities may include, but are not limited to, a detailed IP asset assessment, an IP audit, a trademark clearance search, prior art searches and analysis on the patent side, advice on branding strategy, a legal analysis of IP landscaping, a patentability analysis, a licensing strategy formulation. So for example, for some of my clients, on the level 2, on the L2, I'll talk to them. I'll get a high level, I'll do a high level review. Let's say they have an employment agreement or independent contractor agreement or an NDA. I'll say, send that to me. I'll do a high level review. And my high level review is just on the IP technology side. And if I find deficiencies, I'll put that into my IP strategy report. And I may make a recommendation like, these are serious deficiencies. My recommendation is that you have to get a new non-disclosure agreement template, or you have to get a new independent contractor agreement template, or some of my clients don't even have one. And so my recommendation is you need to get an independent contractor agreement template. And so I'll put that into my L2 IP strategy report. That goes to you and to the IRAP advisor. And what has happened is, for some of my clients, they are able to tap into this level 3, get access to grant monies, and use those to pay me to get you a template NDA, to get you a template independent contractor agreement, for example. So if you're able to tap into level 3, it just strengthens the IP in your business, and it protects your IP really. And so that's this really critical level here, the implementation. And so the SME must provide another specialized quote from their IP expert for the implementation of this strategy when applying for level 3. And again, I've done that for clients. IRAP can provide an additional subsidy to cover 75% of the cost at this level to a maximum of $20,000. So this is the IP Assist program. I'm going to get out of here before I go into my next program and ask anyone if they have any questions. Does anyone have any questions on that? Questions on that? Okay, so let's now move on to the next one, which is the Digital Services Program. And this program is also a federal government program, and it is being run for the federal government in Manitoba by the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce. And so this program is another grant program. It has 3 service streams. It has the business technology assessment stream, the cyber security audit stream, and the digital legal services stream. And so it's online. you apply online. If you have questions, you're more than welcome to call me, because I'm involved with this program on the legal side and have assisted clients. On the business technology assessment, it's useful for businesses looking for independent analysis of their current technology state and those interested in planning for strategic development. And the businesses will receive a report with recommendations. That's stream 1. Stream 2 is a cybersecurity audit. So it's useful for businesses that rely on digital infrastructure to generate and or store data that must be protected. So businesses will receive a report identifying the threats and recommendations on how to strengthen their businesses from cybersecurity attacks. And then the third stream is the digital legal services, and it's for businesses that have IP and data, including personal information, that have an online presence, that have a website. And so businesses will receive either a terms of use, a privacy policy, or an end user license agreement. So when I work with clients who have been able to tap into monies for this digital legal services, what I do is I have a call with them. I figure out what their business is, what their digital presence is, if they're acquiring data, if they have a software as a service platform, and then if they have one of these documents. And if they don't, then we figure out priority, because some businesses are able to tap into only one of those documents, and some businesses are able to tap into 2, but you're not able to tap into 3. And so I work with clients to figure out how many you qualify for, and if you qualify for 1, which one is critical. If you qualify for 2, which of the 3 are top 2? And I work with clients on that, and we figure out what we need to prepare. And so for me, because I'm involved with the digital legal services, you may qualify for one or two of the following: terms of use, which is useful on an interactive website to protect the owner, to limit your liability, to specify which jurisdictions' laws govern disputes if there's a dispute, and to specify who owns user content. Or you may qualify for a privacy policy, which is important when businesses collect personal information and are obligated to provide their customers with information about their privacy practices. And then the third document is an end user license agreement, which stands for EULA. And it's used when a business offers software as a service platform or a mobile app to its users, and offers protection benefits similar to a terms of use, but it's for this platform and the app. And then how do you qualify? So here's the basic eligibility requirements. Your business is owned and operated in Manitoba. Your business is registered in good standing with the Manitoba Companies Office and has been operating since March 1, 2019 or earlier. So if you haven't got your annual returns filed, that means you're in default, and that means that you're not in good standing, and so you should get those in right away before you apply. But if you've been filing your annual returns regularly with the Manitoba Companies Office, you're fine. Third is you can demonstrate that your business has invested at least $3,500 in building digital capacity since December 1, 2021. And businesses that have invested at least $3,500 are eligible for one service. If you've invested at least $7,000 on digital presence, your business is eligible for 2. Now, what does this mean? That you've got digital capacity or invested in digital presence or digital marketing. It can mean a lot of things. And so, again, I would encourage you to speak to someone at the Manitoba Chambers who's running this program to see if you have spent $3,500 or if you spent $7,000. And some of my clients that I've directed to this program have come back and say, well, I don't know if I have. And so then I just put them in touch with the Manitoba Chambers, and they've been phenomenal in answering questions and getting those questions answered on a very quick basis. So feel free to do that. And I could certainly put you in touch with the person or persons that I refer my clients to when they have those questions. If you need, just email me. And number 4 is if you're applying for the digital legal services stream, you have a minimum of 2 full-time equivalent employees. Again, you may have questions on that. So feel free to email the Manitoba Chambers and they'll help you and explain to you what that means. If you're applying for the business technology assessment or the cyber security audit, You must have a minimum of 5 full-time equivalent employees to be eligible. And then the last criteria is the individual named in the application is authorized to enter into legal agreements on behalf of the company. And so I put the link here on this slide that you could access and apply. And if you have any questions, just feel free to email me. So now that's the end of that. So I'm going to now ask if anyone has any questions. And again, you can certainly